What drives a person to become one of America's most notorious serial killers? In the early 1980s, the city of Los Angeles found itself gripped by fear, its residents haunted by a shadowy figure who prowled the night, Richard Ramirez, a name that would become synonymous with terror. Known as the Night Stalker, Ramirez left behind a trail of unimaginable horror, claiming the lives of at least 13 individuals while instilling panic in countless others. Today we delve into the chilling story of Richard Ramirez, exploring not just the man behind the crimes, but the lives shattered in his wake. Richard Leyva Munoz Ramirez was born on February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas. The youngest of 5 children, his early life was steeped in turmoil. His father, a Mexican national, worked as a laborer and had a violent streak that often manifested in beatings, both of his children and his wife. As a child, Ramirez witnessed firsthand the impact of this violence. The chaos in his home life planted the seeds of a deeply troubled psyche. Ramirez's upbringing was further complicated by the influences of his extended family. His older cousin Miguel, a veteran of the Vietnam War, introduced him to a world of brutality and violence that would leave a lasting mark. Miguel's stories of murder and his experiences in the war captivated young Richard, drawing him into a dark fascination with death and destruction. By his teenage years, Ramirez was a lost soul, slipping further into a life of delinquency and experimentation with drugs. The streets of El Paso became his playground, and soon he was engaged in petty crimes, burglary and theft becoming his primary pursuits. Yet, it was the introduction to the occult during this time that would significantly alter the course of his life. Ramirez's obsession with Satanism flourished, and he began to adopt a persona that would later define him, a figure shrouded in darkness and fear. In the summer of 1984, Ramirez made a life-altering decision to move to California. With his family's struggles left behind, he sought a new beginning, but what he found instead was a path that would lead him to infamy. As he settled in Los Angeles, he transformed from a troubled youth into a remorseless predator, ready to unleash chaos upon unsuspecting victims. The summer of 1985 marked the beginning of a reign of terror. Richard Ramirez, now fully embraced by his Night Stalker persona, began his calculated spree across Los Angeles, targeting the vulnerable in the dead of night. His modus operandi was chillingly methodical: home invasions, assaults, and murders that would leave a mark on the city and its residents. Ramirez didn't discriminate. His victims were young and old, men and women, each attacked in their own sanctuaries. On June 28, 1984, he committed his first known murder in the small town of Rosemead, California. He brutally attacked 79-year-old Jenny Vincow, breaking into her home and leaving behind a scene of horror that would set the stage for what was to come. As the months passed, the list of victims grew, each case echoing the terror that rippled through the community. Ramirez would often enter homes through unlocked doors or windows, attacking while his victims slept, using a combination of sheer brutality and psychological manipulation. He wielded not only a weapon, but also an unsettling sense of control, relishing in the fear he instilled. One of the most harrowing incidents occurred on the night of August 18, 1985. Ramirez broke into the home of a couple, Bill and Inez Delgado. He savagely attacked them, forcing Bill to reveal where he kept valuables before turning his violent rage on Inez. The brutal nature of the crime sent shockwaves through the community, but it was just one of many. Among his victims was 22-year-old Maria Hernandez, who survived a near-fatal encounter. In a stroke of fate, she had ducked just as Ramirez fired a gun at her, the bullet instead striking the wall. However, the horror didn't end there. He went on to murder her friend, 34-year-old Dale Okazaki, just moments later. Each story was a heartbreaking reminder of lives interrupted, families shattered, and communities left in fear. The media dubbed him the Night Stalker, a name that struck dread in the hearts of many. As the terror escalated, the city of Los Angeles banded together. Neighborhood watch programs flourished, and residents became increasingly vigilant. They armed themselves, determined to protect their homes from the lurking threat. The media frenzy intensified, capturing every detail of the unfolding nightmare, leaving citizens on edge. But Ramirez was not just a killer, he was a master manipulator. His encounters often took on a ritualistic element. He would draw symbols, engage in verbal taunts, and leave behind items as trophies. These acts not only demonstrated his disregard for human life, but also hinted at a deeply disturbed psyche. By the time his spree ended, Ramirez had claimed at least 13 lives, leaving behind a tapestry of fear that would linger long after his capture. As the body count rose and panic gripped Los Angeles, law enforcement found themselves in a race against time. The investigation into the Night Stalker was fraught with challenges. With no clear patterns or leads, police struggled to connect the dots between the seemingly random attacks. Detectives scoured the city, collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses, but Ramirez's ability to blend into the crowd made him a ghost, elusive and terrifying. It wasn't until a particularly gruesome attack on September 25, 1985, that a breakthrough began to emerge. In the wake of the assault on the Salcido family, which left one victim dead and another critically injured, investigators discovered crucial evidence: a shoe print left at the scene. The distinctive pattern led them to link the various crimes together, forming a clearer picture of the killer's movements. As the investigation progressed, the police released sketches of the suspect, describing a young Hispanic male with a distinct set of characteristics. Media coverage exploded, broadcasting these details to the public in an effort to drum up leads. The desperation to catch the Night Stalker heightened as residents continued to live in fear. Citizens became increasingly vigilant, attending community meetings and sharing tips. The media dubbed Ramirez's reign of terror the Night Stalker, bringing even more attention to the investigation. The fear was palpable, with many residents installing security systems and organizing neighborhood patrols. The turning point came on August 30, 1985. Ramirez attempted to break into a home in the Los Angeles area, but was thwarted by the homeowner. Panicking, he fled the scene, leaving behind vital evidence: a bloody fingerprint on the screen door. This seemingly insignificant detail would become the key that unlocked the case. Detectives quickly matched the fingerprint to a record of a previous arrest. Richard Ramirez was not just a name. He was a known criminal with a history of burglary and drug offenses. The investigation team felt a surge of hope. They now had a name and a face to put to the terror gripping the city. On August 31, 1985, after an intense search and a public appeal, Ramirez was spotted by local residents who recognized him from news broadcasts. In a twist of fate, a group of brave citizens chased him down, cornering him until police arrived. Ramirez was finally apprehended, and the nightmare was over, at least for the moment. As he was led away in handcuffs, the relief was palpable, yet the scars of his actions would linger in the minds of those affected. The investigation, though it had come to a conclusion, opened up a deeper dialogue about the impact of crime on communities and the lingering fears that remain long after the perpetrator is caught. Richard Ramirez was not just a killer. He was a complex individual whose psyche offers a haunting glimpse into the mind of a criminal. As experts delved into his background, it became clear that his life experiences had forged a deeply troubled personality. Growing up in a chaotic environment filled with violence and substance abuse, Ramirez's formative years were marred by trauma. These early experiences left deep psychological scars, influencing his behavior in ways that would manifest in his later life. Criminal psychologists have described Ramirez as a classic example of a sociopath. He exhibited a complete lack of empathy, often relishing the pain and suffering he inflicted on others. This emotional detachment allowed him to commit heinous acts without remorse, a hallmark of many serial killers. Ramirez's fascination with the occult and Satanism further complicates the analysis of his psyche. He often left behind symbols and messages that suggested a desire to invoke fear, not just among his victims, but also within the broader community. His actions weren't merely about the physical act of killing, they were a perverse expression of power and control, rooted in a desire for notoriety. Dr. John Douglas, a former FBI agent and criminal profiler, noted that Ramirez's patterns indicated a thrill-seeking behavior. He targeted vulnerable individuals, often choosing victims who were unsuspecting and defenseless. This predatory instinct underscored his need to assert dominance, a psychological game he played with his victims and law enforcement alike. Ramirez's methods were not random, they were laden with intention. His choice of weapons, the brutality of his attacks, and the ritualistic elements of his crimes all pointed to a man deeply engaged in his own narrative, a narrative where he was both the hunter and the hunted, relishing the media attention that came with his actions. During his trial, his demeanor was unsettling. He often appeared indifferent or even amused, showcasing a level of detachment that further illustrated his psychological makeup. His behavior not only provoked outrage among victims' families, but also served as a chilling reminder of the darkness lurking within his mind. Experts agree that the combination of his traumatic upbringing, obsession with the occult, and sociopathic tendencies created a perfect storm, a lethal cocktail that fueled his violent behavior. Understanding these factors is crucial in grasping the complexities of not only Ramirez's actions, but also the broader implications of how society responds to such criminals. The trial of Richard Ramirez became a spectacle that captivated the nation. As the media descended upon Los Angeles, the courtroom transformed into a stage where the horrifying details of his crimes were laid bare before an anxious public. Beginning in July 1988, the trial was marked by intense public interest and graphic testimony. The prosecution presented harrowing evidence, detailing the gruesome nature of Ramirez's attacks, while the defense struggled to find any redeeming qualities in a case so overwhelmingly against their client. Survivors of Ramirez's assaults took the stand, recounting their traumatic experiences with a bravery that was both inspiring and heartbreaking. Each testimony painted a vivid picture of the terror he inflicted, emphasizing the emotional and psychological scars left in his wake. Victim impact statements provided a platform for families to share their grief and anger. They described the void left by their loved ones and the lasting impact of fear that had gripped their communities. These powerful accounts resonated with jurors and the public alike, emphasizing that each victim was more than just a statistic. They were real people with dreams, hopes, and families. Ramirez's demeanor throughout the trial was chilling. He often appeared unrepentant, displaying a sense of arrogance that baffled those who had suffered due to his actions. He even chose to represent himself for part of the trial, a decision that many believed was a misguided attempt to control the narrative surrounding his crimes. During the proceedings, Ramirez attracted a peculiar following, with some women even declaring their love for him. This phenomenon highlighted the darker aspects of celebrity culture, where infamy can attract adoration rather than condemnation. On September 20, 1989, after weeks of deliberation, the jury found Ramirez guilty on all counts, including 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 11 counts of sexual assault. The verdict sent waves of relief through the community, marking a significant victory for justice. The judge sentenced Ramirez to death, a verdict met with applause from victims' families and supporters alike. Yet even as he faced the ultimate penalty, Ramirez remained defiant, continuing to profess his allegiance to Satan. While awaiting execution on death row at San Quentin State Prison, Ramirez continued to draw attention. He gave numerous interviews and even exchanged letters with fans, further complicating the narrative of a man whose life was defined by violence. The Night Stalker case raised critical discussions about the nature of evil, the psychology behind serial killers, and the media's role in shaping public perception. Ramirez's trial not only sought justice for the victims, but also ignited conversations about how society grapples with the complex web of crime, punishment, and human psychology. The legacy of Richard Ramirez is one woven with threads of fear, trauma, and a haunting reminder of the fragility of safety. His crimes sent shockwaves through communities and sparked a national dialogue about crime and its consequences, forever altering the landscape of how society views serial killers. In the aftermath of Ramirez's reign of terror, many communities adopted new safety measures. Neighborhood watch programs flourished, and residents began taking personal security more seriously, investing in alarms and home security systems. The Night Stalker's horror prompted an awakening to the realities of vulnerability within one's own home. Law enforcement agencies also reevaluated their approaches to tracking serial offenders. The case underscored the importance of sharing information across jurisdictions, as Ramirez had committed his crimes across various neighborhoods and cities. Investigative techniques evolved, leading to advancements in forensic science and criminal profiling that would shape future investigations. Ramirez's crimes also ignited discussions about mental health and the societal responsibilities toward individuals with troubled backgrounds. Experts examined how early trauma, such as what Ramirez experienced, could lead to devastating outcomes if left unaddressed. This prompted advocacy for mental health awareness and resources aimed at preventing future tragedies. The media frenzy surrounding the Night Stalker case continues to resonate in popular culture. Documentaries, podcasts, and films have explored his story, often grappling with the moral implications of sensationalizing such violence. While some aim to educate and inform, others tread the fine line of glorifying a figure whose actions left devastation in their wake. Today, Ramirez's name serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk within society. Social media discussions often revolve around the psychological aspects of his crimes, with true crime enthusiasts dissecting the case in forums and online communities. This phenomenon raises questions about the ethics of consuming true crime narratives and the fine line between fascination and exploitation. For the families of Ramirez's victims, the scars of his actions run deep. Many have dedicated their lives to advocating for victims' rights and raising awareness about the impact of violent crime. They remind us that behind every statistic lies a story, a human life that was irrevocably changed. As we reflect on the legacy of Richard Ramirez, it's essential to remember the lives lost and the ongoing journey of healing for those affected. The Night Stalker is a symbol of the complexities of human nature, reminding us of the capacity for both evil and resilience. The story of Richard Ramirez is not just one of a monster who prowled the night. It is a stark reminder of the realities of crime and its impact on society. As we delve into the dark corners of human behavior, let us remain vigilant in our pursuit of justice and compassion for those left in the shadows of such tragedies. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the chilling tale of the Night Stalker. Remember, understanding the past is crucial in preventing future horrors. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and keep asking questions.